The story, the soldier, and the soil. Kael was a man built of echoes. His mind was a fortress. But the enemy wasn't outside the walls. It was inside, in the haunted hallways of his own memory. He had returned from a conflict that had no clear end. His body intact, but his spirit frayed. The world was too loud, too bright, too sudden. A car backfiring would send him diving for cover. The crush of a crowd felt like a suffocating ambush. He lived in a state of constant, vigilant war. He fought his triggers, his nightmares, his short temper. He tried to discipline his mind like he had disciplined his body in the army, with rigid routines, harsh self-criticism, and sheer force of will. He would lie in the dark, fists clenched, ordering himself to sleep. He would sit in a quiet room, commanding his heart to calm down. But the more he fought, the more the chaos fought back. He was a general losing a war in his own mind. His grandmother, a woman with eyes as deep and calm as a forest pool, saw his suffering. She didn't offer him advice or empty platitudes. She simply handed him a set of old, rusty keys. "The old cottage by the woods," she said. "The garden has been waiting, desperate, for any escape." Kael went. The cottage was small and dusty, but it was the garden that arrested him. It wasn't a garden, it was a jungle, a twisted, overgrown battlefield of weeds. Thorns choked the rose bushes, bindweed strangled forgotten trellises. The soil was hard and cracked. It was a mirror of his own inner landscape, a place of beautiful things being suffocated by chaos. The conflict ignited immediately. Kael saw the garden as a new mission, a problem to be solved, an enemy to be defeated. He attacked it with a soldier's fury. He ripped at the weeds, his hands bleeding from the thorns. He hacked at the roots with violent strokes. He fought the garden as he fought his memories. But for every weed he pulled, two seemed to grow back. The sheer relentless scale of the task overwhelmed him. After a week of brutal, fruitless effort, he stood in the middle of the ruin, his chest heaving, on the verge of screaming in frustration. He was losing this war too. He called his grandmother, his voice thick with defeat. "It's impossible. It's a waste of time." Her voice was gentle. "Kael," she said, "you are not there to fight the garden. You are there to listen to it. You are not a soldier there. You are a gardener." The turning point came with her words. They settled in him, unfamiliar and strange. A gardener. The next day, he didn't bring his tools of war. He just walked into the garden and sat on an old, moss-covered stone. He forced himself to just be, to observe. He noticed things. He saw that the thorns protecting the roses were also home to a tiny, intricate spiderweb glistening with dew. He saw that the seemingly chaotic patch of clover was buzzing with happy bees. He saw that the hard, cracked soil in one area was soft and moist in the shade of a large, neglected fern. He wasn't here to conquer. He was here to understand. The next day, he didn't try to clear the whole garden. He chose a single, small patch of earth, no bigger than a dinner plate. He didn't rip the weeds out. He carefully dug around them, loosening the soil, and gently pulled them from the root. It was slow. It was patient. It was meditative, empathetic. As he worked, his breathing slowed. The frantic, pounding rhythm in his chest eased into the quiet, steady rhythm of the earth. His mind, usually a screaming battleground, grew quiet. For the first time in years, he wasn't fighting a thought or a memory. He was just focused on the simple, tangible task of freeing a small square of soil. One small patch became two, then a row. He learned to compost the weeds he pulled, transforming the enemies of the garden into food for its future. He wasn't eliminating his problems. He was recycling them, learning from them, using them to create new growth. He stopped commanding himself to sleep, and instead, exhausted from a day of gentle labor, he simply fell into it. He stopped fighting the flashbacks, and instead, when they came, he would acknowledge them like a stubborn weed, and then gently return his focus to the memory of the soft, rich soil in his hands. He was no longer a soldier. He was a cultivator. He was tending to his own soul as he tended to the land. Seasons turned. The garden began to breathe again. Flowers bloomed where thorns had been. Vegetables sprouted from the once barren earth. It was not a perfectly manicured park. It was a living, breathing, slightly wild ecosystem. It was healthy and whole. One afternoon, Kael was on his knees, harvesting tomatoes. The sun warm on his back. A loud crack of thunder split the sky, a sound that would have once sent him into a panic. This time he simply looked up at the gathering clouds. He felt his heart beat faster, but it was just a heart beating, not a warning siren. He felt a memory stir, but it was just a memory, not a monster. He gathered his basket and walked calmly to the cottage. As the rain began to fall, he stood on the porch, watching the rain nourish the garden he had nurtured, feeling a profound peace he thought was lost forever. The Mora. Kael's story teaches us that the deepest forms of strength are not always forged in fire. Sometimes they are grown in the quiet, patient soil of acceptance. We think discipline is about force, about conquering our lazy, weak, or fearful selves. But true, lasting discipline is not a sword, it is a trowel. It is not about fighting your nature, but about understanding it. It is not about eradicating the weeds in your mind, but about learning why they grow there and gently, consistently replanting the soil. Your anxiety, your procrastination, your fear, they are not enemies to be destroyed. They are overgrown parts of your inner garden, signaling neglected soil. You cannot shout at a seedling to grow faster. You cannot command a flower to bloom. You can only provide the consistent, gentle conditions for growth, sunlight of awareness, water of compassion, and the nutrient-rich soil of patient daily effort. Stop fighting the storm within. Step into your garden. Tend to one small patch. Today, be a gardener to your own soul, and you will discover that the peace you seek is not a distant victory to be won, but a natural state, waiting to be cultivated. Don't forget, like and subscribe.